Coming up on Network Africa, Central African Republic's Faustin Archange Touadera re-elected as president after winning December's election. South Africans express concern over government's preparedness to carry out mass COVID-19 vaccinations. Plus, the Republic of Seychelles records its first death from COVID-19. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin in the Central African Republic, where President Faustin Archange Touadera has been re-elected after securing nearly 54% of the votes. The Electoral Commission says the results makes a second-round runoff unnecessary. Former Prime Minister Anicet George Pologuele finished a distant second with just 21% of the votes, while Martin Ziguele finished third with 7% of the votes. There were a total of 16 candidates running for president, including 3 women. However, opposition candidates say the election was riddled with massive irregularities. The vote took place despite an offensive by a coalition of armed rebel groups, which left thousands unable to cast their ballots. Well, Chatsworth, a township in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province, is reeling from the gruesome murder of 3 men on Monday. A suspected drug kingpin, Yaganathan Pillay, known as Teddy Mafia, was fatally shot, after which 2 suspects were beheaded and lynched. Now, according to police spokesperson Jay Naika, he was found injured, but he died upon arrival at the hospital. The police is still investigating the details of the incident. Here's a track from the police spokesperson.
Yes, earlier this afternoon, police received reports of shooting at this premises, and when they arrived at the scene, they had found a large mob that gathered here, and upon seeing the police officers, this group opened fire on police. There was a long standoff between the community and police, and eventually we had to use public order policing unit members to disperse the group before we could get onto the crime scene. Once we had got onto the scene, we then cordoned off the scene, and we started interviewing family members and other people that were around that would talk to police. From what we could gather, the daughter of this well-known drug dealer that lived in this house told her earlier on this afternoon that he was expecting visitors. She then said she left him at the front of the house and went to the back of the house, and shortly afterwards she heard gunshots. When they investigated, they found he had been shot. He was rushed to a local hospital where we were informed that he passed away.
Now let's just back up to our main story for today, coming from the Central African Republic. President Faustin Archange Touadera has been re-elected as president. We have Achike Chude, an African affairs analyst, joining us now for more discussions on this. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
I think it's a pleasure.
Now, what do you make of, President Faustin Archange Touadera's victory? This is his second term in office.
Well, incumbents, we have seen across the continent and most parts of the world, incumbents tend to have a better prospect of winning elections. So if we are going to look at it from that premise, then it will not be so much out of the way that the president is retaining his mandate for another term. I think it's a good thing. All the candidates contested, there is bound to be a winner, and the winner has emerged. And so I think, but of course, what happens after that is actually where we're going to address our minds. But it's a good one. Like I said, elections take place, and it's expected that at the end of the day, if it is a well-conducted election, that there will be less rancor, less controversy, and that a winner has emerged or will emerge. Of course, we know that the Central African Republic has been emerged in all kinds of crises for decades now. And so we are hoping that this time around, that he will use the second term to forge some kind of reconciliation and make Central African Republic better, so that can leave a better legacy for himself and for the country.
Now, hinging on the crisis you just mentioned, some parts of the country were actually unable to vote in December because of insecurity. Now, what would you say, is the way forward for the country in terms of unity and reconciliation, even though the opposition is still crying foul?
Yeah, well, I want to believe that the process for unity and reconciliation and the progress and stability started long before the election. Of course, a lot of international bodies, international United Nations, the European Union, the African Union, even the organization, the Economic Commission of the Central African, Central in Africa, have also been involved in trying to ensure that there is peace in that long troubled country. Of course, in 2019, there was an agreement, a peace agreement involving the government and 14 non-state actors, militia, actors more or less, for, eschewing peace and the need for peace. The fact that most of these groups actually gathered together for the purpose of peace is an indication of something positive. And I think that this is what has led to this particular election. It is unfortunate, really, that in the African continent, in most cases, when elections are conducted, you do not have, there's always rancor or controversy following it. And I think that has to do a lot with the way the election itself, the process actually went. It must be done in a way that gives satisfaction to a lot of people. Central African Republic has been, mad, like I said before, with all kinds of crises. It is time for the elites. It is time for the politicians to begin to think more of rather than themselves, what they stand for.
Thank you so much, African Affairs Analyst Achike Chude. Thank you for your thoughts on Network Africa.
Thank you.
A COVID-19 vaccine has to be made available to all South Africans, starting with the most vulnerable and health workers. Now, that's according to Health Minister Zweli Mkhize, who says the government is committed to rolling out vaccines with urgency to establish herd immunity against COVID-19. Here's more on South Africa's plan for the vaccine.
I have personally participated in discussing with the leadership, the global leadership of the various manufacturers. We've done that in two of the capacities in which we serve. On the one aspect, on behalf of South Africa, we have been involved in a lot of discussions. Literally, every second, third day, we are actually involved with some of the discussions. And at the same time, I'm also part of a task team that's been created by President Cyril Ramaphosa, which is the African Vaccine Access. Most of the countries that have started vaccination, because of the vastness of their resources, they've been able to bid for all the vaccines much earlier, long before even the vaccine outcomes trials were released. So they actually put up lots of resources at that level. Unfortunately, we have to work together in a situation where we've got a much more constrained environment. But at this point, we're quite comfortable that at the time of the rollout, we would have been able to catch up with most of those countries that are doing, at this point, that have already started some of the vaccination.
South Africans are raising concerns over the country's preparedness to carry out mass vaccinations against COVID-19 following the announcement by the government that it had secured enough vaccines to immunize 10% of the population. The South African government is planning to vaccinate a minimum of 67% of the population, approximately 40.3 million citizens, by the end of the year to achieve herd immunity.
Simply and unlikely to materialize in a South African context for two major reasons. The first reason is that we haven't secured a supply of vaccine to meet the target. And the second reason is that there's been absolutely very little, if any, planning in terms of how we will go about vaccinating 150,000 people per day, 7 days a week for the first month, and after that, 300,000 people per day for the next 9 months.
It gives a sense that there is no plan in place only now when about 40 countries are already distributing vaccine in their own populations. The minister is desperately trying to play catch up. And this is just not acceptable when you consider the fact that people are dying at an alarming rate in this country.
South Africa had placed all its collective eggs in the COVAX basket. And now we have a situation where we didn't start our bilateral engagements quick enough when the rest of the world was doing that. Now we're talking about a situation where the minister is saying that 67% of South Africans need to be vaccinated by the end of the year, which is an audacious task considering the fact that we still haven't started on the plan, and yet we also don't have experience of rolling out vaccinations at this scale.
Well, let's speak to Neo Mtkulu, a South African journalist joining us now. Thank you so much for speaking to us on the program. Let me get right into it. Thank you. Now, this vaccine is expected in February, according to the health minister. Do we know which brand it is, and particularly the reason for picking that, whatever brand it will be?
The number of media speculation point for the vaccine reports that they might be using the Russian V vaccine, but that is yet been confirmed. South Africa and Russia is part of a major stakeholder in South African relations. So is China and Brazil. And these are countries that are already rolling out the vaccine. Also, what we understand is that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine plant, there's a plant in PE, which is the Aspen Pharmacy Care, which belongs to Johnson & Johnson, where they will be packaging their vaccine in South Africa. So it is not clear yet, as you listen to the clip where the minister was briefing the media, that he did not give out any names, but those are two speculations that are now circulating in the South African media. It's only then when the minister is ready to give us that information, we'll know which brand they're using. But the Russian one seems promising because, according to reports, the South African government has entered into a multi-billion rand contract with the Russian government, but it's not clear yet. But South Africa is part of BRICS, so we will see as time continues.
Now, on the part of the citizens, what are their expectations? How ready or how skeptical are they about receiving the jab when it eventually lands?
There are a lot of speculations that are taking place in South African media and actually in society per se. This week we saw one of the most prominent actors telling South Africans or her followers that the vaccine might not be good for them because there are natural herbs that they can use. And also we had the Chief Justice, which is who is part of the highest court in South Africa, praying actually that the vaccine should not come from the devil, quoting religious connotations like the 666 and things like that. So the South African public is very skeptical about this vaccine, and I think the part of that is that there isn't much education that government is doing to educate South Africans about the vaccine. So there's a lot of speculations that it might not be safe, but I would say the majority of South Africans are really looking forward to getting this vaccine because a lot of industries have stopped in South Africa. And as you would know, that our economy actually was impacted hard because of the lockdowns that we went under. I mean, we are in our second level 3 lockdown in South Africa. And part of the reason why South Africa couldn't get the vaccine rolled out at a very fast pace is because of the financial muscle that we lost during COVID-19. However, there are other developing countries that are already having their vaccine rolled out, countries like Algeria. That is because of their manufacturing manpower. South Africa has lost a lot of manufacturing manpower in the last few decades. As you would know, that our economy was in a point of recess or in a point of decay for a long time where we couldn't really be creating factories or any jobs like that. But it is So I would say South Africans are very critical about the vaccine, but there are a number of people who want it so that the economy can now start again and more jobs could be created. The South African economy might just recover in the next 3 to 4 years. So, everyone is looking forward to the vaccine.
We'll just have to wait and see how it all pans out. But thank you so much, Neo Mtukulu, for your reporting. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Still ahead on the program. Africa's first drone academy teaches students in Malawi how to fly drones, collect and analyze data. We'll have more after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Zimbabwe's government has put the country under a harder lockdown for 30 days, starting today, as it tries to curb the rise in COVID-19 cases. All public gatherings except funerals have been suspended, while an overnight curfew that previously began at 10 p.m. now comes into effect from 6 p.m. Also, only essential services such as medical, supermarket, mining, house and farm workers are allowed to report for duty. Before the festive season, cases had been steadily rising, but an almost doubling of new infections between November and December has brought matters to a head. In the meantime, Rwanda has banned public and private transport between districts and the capital, Kigali, after the rate of coronavirus infections increased and reached alarming levels. In a statement, the Prime Minister's office says that domestic and international tourists can still travel across the country, but must carry proof of negative COVID-19 test results. December was the deadliest month, claiming half of the total 105 deaths reported so far since the first case was confirmed in March last year. Officials believe travel from cities to the countryside during the festive season is behind this new surge of infections. The country has in the past 7 days recorded 820 new cases and 30 deaths. While the island nation of Seychelles has recorded its first death from COVID-19, the patient was a 57-year-old man who was hospitalized on New Year's Eve. That's according to a statement from the health authorities. The Indian Ocean archipelago confirmed 16 new cases on Sunday evening, 3 of which were reported on its second most populous island of Praslin. Seychelles, composed of 115 islands, registered its first case of COVID-19 in March 2020 and has so far recorded 322 cases and 223 recoveries. Niger has announced 3 days of national mourning after at least 100 people were killed by suspected Islamist militants in Saturday's attacks. The attacks were staged in 2 villages, both located near Niger's western border with Mali. Now, residents in the 2 villages have asked for weapons following the absence of security forces in the area, but the authorities fear it will fuel an inter-community conflict. President Mahamadou Issoufou on Monday chaired a meeting of the National Security Council to discuss the state of the security in the country. The government says it will strengthen security in the western Tillaberi region, which has been plagued by jihadist attacks for many years. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has strongly condemned the attacks in Niger and expressed his deepest condolences to the bereaved families and the people and the government of the country. According to UN Deputy Spokesperson Farhan Haq, the UN boss is also wishing those injured in the attacks a speedy recovery.
Turning to Niger, our humanitarian colleagues report that as of yesterday, an estimated 1,000 people have been displaced following attacks on 2 villages in the country's Tillaberi region. Many of them have sought refuge in nearby towns. People fearing further attacks are also reportedly fleeing areas around the 2 villages attacked over the weekend. A joint interagency assessment mission with the government is scheduled for tomorrow. Meanwhile, we, along with our humanitarian partners, are mobilizing relief items to provide emergency assistance as soon as possible to people affected by these attacks, including people still in the villages, displaced people, and host communities. In a statement issued last night, the Secretary General strongly condemned the attacks. He expressed his deepest condolences to the bereaved families and the people and government of Niger and wished a speedy recovery to the injured. The Secretary General added that he trusts that the Nigerian authorities will spare no effort in identifying and swiftly bringing the perpetrators of this heinous act to justice while enhancing the protection of civilians. He also reaffirmed the solidarity and support of the United Nations to the government and people of Niger in their fight against terrorism, violent extremism, and organized crime.
Africa's first drone academy is open in Malawi, where students are learning how to make and fly drones, collect and analyze data. The institute builds on the work of a pilot scheme launched in 2017 with the support of UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, in which drones have been used to deliver medical supplies, monitor crops, and map cholera outbreaks.
For Ethiopian aeronautical engineer Lydia Elias, building and piloting a drone to support humanitarian and development projects on the continent for her birth was a lifelong dream. In 2020, as a student at Africa's first drone academy, she has made it come true.
After me learning, I try to teach my people. I also have an aerospace club, so I'm trying to transfer this knowledge to the students that are fellows in my country.
The institute is in Malawi and was built on the work of a pilot scheme launched in 2017 with the support of the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, in which drones have been used to deliver medical supplies, monitor crops and map cholera outbreaks. Elias and 25 others from across Africa were the first batch of students at the academy, which opened outside the capital, Lilongwe. They learn how to make and fly drones, collect and analyze data over a 12-week course. Other students shared Elias's excitement.
For a short time that I've been in here, I've been able to create this drone because this drone is the drone which I made from my own ends through the use of provided aided materials. We provided all these materials in how to go about. Then I followed all the procedures until I make this drone.
The academy had planned to train 150 students to build and pilot drones in 2021.
So this is a very significant step to help young people obtain 21st century skills. This decade, which has just started, is going to be digital. And to help young people improve their skills, learn about digital technology, learn about drones, will be an incredible step forward, not only for Malawi, but for many other African countries as well.
Funding from UNICEF partners has provided for tuition to the first cohort of 26 students. It is expected that by 2022, the academy will run a tuition-free 2-year master's degree program in drone technology.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.